The first trap activation of the game happened on the f6 square. Black moved their knight to the f6 square as a standard opening, and they lost it to a knight landmine. This gave Stockfish a brand new board position to analyze pretty early in the game. The next trap activation of the game happened when white took black's knight on the c6 square. Normally, black would have taken the bishop back with the pawn on the d7 or the b7 square. However, a bishop landmine activated, removing white's bishop. This allowed black to make a different move, rather than spending their move taking back white's bishop. The next trap activation happened when black moved their pawn to the d5 square. They were attempting to protect their pawn on the e4 square, however, a pawn landmine activated, removing their pawn. If you like these trap activations, please remember to subscribe to stay in touch. Black lost a pawn on the next trap activation as well. They moved their pawn to the h5 square, but they hit a pawn landmine and lost it. A lot of moves took place before the next trap activation. White moved their pawn to the h3 square, but they hit a pawn landmine and lost it. The next trap activation cost black their bishop. They moved their bishop back to its starting square on the f8 square. However, there was a bishop landmine waiting for them and they lost their bishop. They didn't lose their bishop originally when it started on the landmine, because landmines only activate when you move to a square. The bishop started on the square, so the landmine was never found until the bishop moved back to that square. The next trap activation occurred when black moved their pawn up to the g4 square. A pawn landmine was waiting for them and they lost their pawn. By this point in the game, white had a large advantage. Black decided to align both of their rooks on the d file, however they hit a rook landmine on the d8 square. It was mate in 2 for white to win. After moving their rook to the a2 square, they would be able to move their other rook alongside the 7 rank to a spot where it was safe, and then come down on a8 with their rook, and they would win the game. However, when they moved their first rook to the a2 square, they hit a rook landmine, losing it. It was no longer a mate in 2, and the checkmate was prolonged. White moved their rook to the h7 square, attempting to win the game. However, there was a rook landmine waiting for them, and they lost their rook, prolonging the game. If you like these trap activations, especially these that block checkmate, please remember to subscribe. One day you'll be able to buy your own trap chess set. Thank you for watching.